Chelsy Davy recently posted photos of her newborn son, Finn. At 40 years old, she looks radiant, relaxed, and genuinely happy. The kind of happiness that does not require professional lighting or a PR team deciding the timing of an announcement. She has 3 children, a thriving jewelry business built entirely on her own terms, and a life that appears, by every available external indicator, to be exactly what she wanted. Across an ocean, in a Montecito mansion, a man who once sat with her and talked about building a large family under an African sky is watching those photos exist in the world. According to people who know him, the news of Chelsy Davy's 3rd child reportedly hit Prince Harry harder than almost anything that has happened in the last 12 months. Not because it is specifically about her, or because there is anything but goodwill toward her well-being, but because of what those photographs represent. The specific life she is living and the specific life he is not. Tonight, we are going through why this child announcement matters, and why it now looks connected to one of the strangest public commitments Prince Harry has ever made. We will examine the One Young World speech in Manchester that multiple royal observers have described as a turning point in how informed people view the Sussex operation, the Jordan trip footage that body language analysts have been discussing, the Vanity Fair report about a post-divorce manuscript, and what all of it means for a man who is watching the life he once described wanting being lived by someone else while his own situation becomes progressively harder to manage. This is going to cover a lot of ground, and I want to cover all of it. Let's start with Chelsy Davy and why these photos matter beyond the obvious. Chelsy Davy and Prince Harry were together, on and off, for the better part of a decade, from approximately 2004 to 2011. Their relationship was marked by the kinds of breaks and reconciliations that often characterize relationships, where the feelings are genuine, but the circumstances are difficult. Prince Harry is reportedly heartbroken all over again. By every account from people who knew them during those years, people who knew both of them as individuals rather than public figures, they shared a connection that was real, specific, and grounded in the kind of shared experience that goes beyond celebrity proximity and public visibility. They truly knew each other. They had meaningful conversations about what they wanted from life. They talked about the future in specific terms. A large family, a life with more space and privacy than the royal machine allowed, and something that felt genuinely theirs rather than institutionally managed. Eventually, she walked away, and the reasons were more complicated than the standard narrative suggests. The common version of events is that Chelsy Davy could not handle the royal spotlight, that the pressure from the press became unsustainable, and that she ultimately decided a relationship with Prince Harry was not compatible with the life she wanted for herself. There is certainly some truth to that version. However, Angela Levin, who has spent more time with Prince Harry than most royal biographers, and whose years of observation give her accounts considerable weight, has described a picture of that relationship that is far less flattering to him than the standard narrative. According to Levin's account, Prince Harry often failed to show up in the ways healthy relationships require. He expected loyalty without always offering the same level of commitment in return. He reportedly treated Chelsy Davy's academic ambitions and desire to build an independent life as secondary to his own needs and schedule. Rather than responding to her time away at university with support and frequent visits, he reportedly reacted with disappointment over her unavailability. One particularly notable claim reported by Levin is that Prince Harry allegedly began seeing other women while Chelsy Davy was at university instead of making the effort to maintain the relationship from a distance. If accurate, that detail would help explain the eventual breakdown of the relationship without making royal pressure the primary cause. Chelsy Davy had too much self-respect to continue accepting an arrangement that required her to be available on his terms without receiving the same level of commitment in return. She built her own life in the most straightforward sense of that phrase. She studied. She worked. She turned her jewelry venture into a genuinely successful business without using her former royal connection as its commercial foundation, without publishing a tell-all about the relationship, and without building a brand around the royal world she chose to leave behind. She married someone who shows up, someone who does not appear to require a carefully managed public image of the relationship as a commercial product. She has 3 children. She lives in a country she loves and enjoys a life that, by every available external indicator, reflects what she actually wanted. That is the specific and visible contrast highlighted by the photos of baby Finn. It is not simply a former girlfriend having a child. It is the life itself. The 3 children, the independent success, the privacy, and the genuine happiness that does not require constant curation. It is the life Prince Harry once described wanting, and the life that Chelsy Davy appears to be living. Now, I want to be clear about what is fact and what is speculation. The facts are that the photos exist, that Chelsy Davy's life is publicly observable, and that it reflects, with notable specificity, the vision of family life Prince Harry reportedly described during their relationship. The speculation concerns Prince Harry's emotional reaction. Nobody outside his immediate circle can know that with certainty, and I am not claiming otherwise. What can be said is that the irony is difficult to ignore. A man who once said he wanted that specific life is now watching someone else live it. Whether or not he feels regret privately, the contrast between Chelsy Davy's circumstances and his own is visible and significant. If UK Trend News is giving you the full picture on this story, the Chelsy Davy context, the 2-child limit controversy, the Manchester speech transcript, the Vanity Fair report, and the Jordan footage, then consider supporting the channel. A simple like costs nothing and helps this content reach people who enjoy this type of analysis. Many observers look at Chelsy Davy's life today and conclude that she made the right decision. They compare it to Prince Harry's current public image, which some perceive as marked by ongoing legal battles, frustration, and a sense of unhappiness. Whether that perception is fair or not, it remains a common observation. Now let's discuss the 2-child limit, because it remains one of the more unusual chapters in the Sussex public relations story. In 2026, viewed through the lens of Chelsy Davy's 3rd child, it appears considerably more striking than it did when it was first announced in 2019. In 2019, during a widely publicized interview with Vogue, Prince Harry stated that he and Meghan Markle would have a maximum of 2 children for environmental reasons. The climate change argument was presented as the rationale, with a smaller family footprint framed as a contribution to planetary sustainability during a period of heightened environmental concern. Again, it is important to distinguish fact from interpretation. The fact is that Prince Harry made the statement publicly in a major interview, and that it was widely reported. The fact is also that some people who knew him were reportedly surprised by the comment, because he had previously spoken about wanting a large family. The interpretation, and I am clearly identifying this as interpretation, is the view held by some royal observers that the statement reflected Meghan Markle's public positioning and priorities more than Prince Harry's long-standing personal wishes. What gives that interpretation continued attention is the contrast we can observe today. Chelsy Davy, who reportedly had conversations with Prince Harry about building a large family years earlier, has now welcomed her 3rd child. That 3rd child stands in direct contrast to the publicly stated position that 2 children was the ideal limit. If the 2-child limit reflected a deeply held personal belief of Prince Harry's, one developed independently and consistently over time, it would be easier to view Chelsy Davy's choices as entirely separate. Instead, because of earlier reports about his desire for a larger family and his references to wanting a tribe rather than a tightly managed family footprint, the 2019 statement is often viewed in retrospect as a departure from previous views rather than a continuation of them. That contrast is what continues to make the issue a subject of discussion among royal commentators and observers. Subscribe to UK Trend News so you never miss what we cover next, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think the 2-child announcement was Prince Harry's genuine position? Or did it seem like brand positioning from the very beginning? Now let's talk about the One Young World Conference in Manchester, because this event has been described by multiple royal observers as a turning point in how informed audiences view the Sussex public operation. For many observers, it was the moment when the gap between the stated mission and the observable delivery became difficult to ignore, especially in a room filled with exactly the people the Sussexes most needed to impress. The conference brought together young leaders from around the world, people working on real problems in real communities who had traveled to Manchester specifically to engage with the kinds of global challenges that the Sussex operation describes as its core focus. This was not a celebrity event. It was not a red carpet appearance or a brand launch. This was the audience for whom the mission statement was supposedly written. These were the people the Sussex operation most needed to impress, because impressing them would demonstrate that the mission was substantive rather than merely cosmetic. The speech lasted approximately 20 minutes. Analysts who reviewed the transcript noted that, during that time, Meghan Markle referred to herself, her experiences, her feelings, and her reactions more than 50 times. The thematic center of the speech was consistently and repeatedly Meghan herself. Her journey, her recognition, her moments of realization, her experience of being at a particular table, her feelings of disbelief at finding herself among world leaders, and even the story of saving a small paper place card as proof that she belonged there. In terms of structure, emphasis, and attention, the speech focused primarily on Meghan Markle rather than on the young leaders who had come to Manchester to be inspired by and engage with discussions about global challenges. Ella Robertson, the daughter of the organization's co-founder, reportedly watched the speech and responded with a blunt observation: she had ruined it. According to reports, the reason was exactly what many transcript analyses highlighted. The speech repeatedly returned to Meghan rather than focusing on the people the conference was intended to serve. Tom Bower has cited this speech as one of the clearest early indicators of what he views as a structural problem within the Sussex philanthropic operation: that when presented with a significant platform and a specific audience, the instinct often appears to be self-reference rather than outward service. This matters because the stated mission of the Sussex operation is centered on service and impact. To some observers, the gap between that mission and the Manchester speech was noticeable enough to provoke the reactions it did from individuals who were actually in attendance. The contrast with speeches that genuinely serve an audience, those that use personal experience as a bridge to a larger message rather than making the speaker the central focus, was apparent to many people in the room. The reactions from within the conference suggested that audience members noticed that distinction and formed their own conclusions. This is a pattern that critics and observers of the Sussex operation have repeatedly identified across multiple appearances and platforms. Their argument is not necessarily that the work is insincere, but rather that the presentation often appears to prioritize the presenter over the stated purpose. In Manchester, before an audience of young leaders who understand service because they practice it in their own communities, that distinction appeared particularly noticeable. Now let's turn to Jordan, because the footage from that trip deserves a more careful examination than the typical tabloid treatment. The distinction I want to make is between speculation based on a single photograph and the kind of pattern analysis that examines extended footage across multiple appearances and several days. The Jordan trip provided analysts with exactly that opportunity. There were multiple appearances across 2 days, allowing footage to be compared and contrasted rather than judged from isolated moments. One pattern that several analysts, working independently of one another, have pointed to is Prince Harry's physical response to Meghan Markle's public displays of affection. The hand-reaching, deliberate closeness, and visible physical connection have been consistent elements of their public appearances from the earliest days of their relationship through recent years. According to these observers, the Jordan footage appeared different. They point to what they describe as increased physical distance between the couple, visible moments of withdrawal from contact that had previously seemed natural and accepted, and a different overall dynamic in public settings. The physical space that appeared between them was notable not because they were in public, but because it occurred within a setting where public displays of closeness had historically been common. That said, it is important to be cautious. Body language analysis should not be treated as scientific certainty, and no observer can definitively determine the state of a relationship based solely on public footage. I am simply noting that multiple analysts have reached similar conclusions after reviewing the same footage, that those conclusions are consistent with other observable indicators from the past 12 months, and that the pattern they describe aligns with documented events. Those indicators include the reported 88 days without a shared photograph, increasingly separate professional paths, and source reports suggesting separate schedules and largely independent lives. Multiple analysts examining the extended footage have identified a broadly consistent pattern. What that pattern ultimately means for the current state of the relationship is a matter of interpretation. My conclusions are opinions, not certainties. Now let's discuss the Vanity Fair report, because it is arguably the most commercially significant and personally consequential development in this story for Prince Harry. The specific nature of what was reported deserves careful consideration. Vanity Fair is not a tabloid publication. It operates with editorial standards, fact-checking procedures, and a reputation that carries accountability for what it publishes. When Vanity Fair reports that a post-divorce manuscript has reportedly been pitched to publishers, and that there is significant interest in such a project, that claim naturally carries more weight than if it appeared in a typical gossip publication. According to the report, the proposed book is something Meghan Markle has either been preparing herself or has had prepared on her behalf. It is reportedly being held in readiness for publication in the event of a separation from Prince Harry. The reported subject matter is significant. Life after the marriage ends. Not a wellness book. Not a leadership guide. A book focused on the marriage and what follows afterward. To understand why this could be one of the most consequential developments for Prince Harry, it is important to understand what Spare did, and what a comparable book from Meghan Markle's perspective could potentially do. Spare achieved major commercial success, but it also had a profound impact on Prince Harry's relationships with members of the royal family, including Prince William, King Charles III, and the wider institution itself. Every private conversation described in the book, every personal anecdote, and every family dispute that became public inevitably altered those relationships. Prince Harry knows what that experience feels like from the author's side. He made the decision to publish private conversations and deeply personal family matters, fully aware that those involved would eventually read them. He also understands what it feels like from the receiving side, because he remains part of a family that has spent years watching private moments become public content. A book written by Meghan Markle about the inside of their marriage, based on her perspective and her access to years of shared private experiences, could have a similar effect. The arguments, confidences, personal decisions, and conversations that occurred behind closed doors could become available to a global audience. The things said in trust, within a marriage, could be transformed into published material. In that scenario, Prince Harry would experience something similar to what Prince William and King Charles III experienced when reading Spare. The feeling of seeing private aspects of one's life become part of someone else's commercial narrative. This possibility is what several commentators have described as an invisible constraint within Prince Harry's current situation. In their view, it makes the dynamics more complicated than a simple choice between remaining in a strained marriage or leaving it. Whether such a manuscript actually exists in the form described, and whether the reported pitch represents a genuine publishing plan or simply a strategic signal, cannot be independently verified from the outside. What can be verified is that the report exists, that Vanity Fair published it, and that Prince Harry has not publicly responded to or disputed the claims. The ongoing security dispute adds another layer to the broader discussion, because it highlights a gap that critics frequently point to between Prince Harry's stated concerns and his observable behavior. His stated position has been that the threat level he faces in the United Kingdom is serious enough to require taxpayer-funded armed police protection, and that, without such protection, visits become difficult or impractical. Critics, however, point to a travel record that includes visits to countries such as Nigeria, Colombia, and Jordan, locations that have their own documented security challenges, without the same level of formal protective arrangements he has argued are necessary for visits to Britain. The contrast is one that many members of the public have noticed. Supporters argue that the threats faced in the United Kingdom are different in nature, involving unique security considerations, media attention, and historical circumstances that do not necessarily exist elsewhere. Critics argue that the travel record creates an appearance of inconsistency. Both perspectives continue to be debated. What is clear is that the perceived inconsistency between the stated threat level and actual travel choices has generated significant public skepticism. That skepticism has, in turn, affected public and political discussions regarding whether taxpayer-funded security should be provided. Public patience with the security debate appears limited, and has been for some time. The reasons are varied. Economic pressures, concerns about fairness, and broader questions about how public resources should be allocated. These factors continue to shape how the issue is viewed by many people across the United Kingdom. A public service sector has been reduced in ways that have directly affected ordinary people's lives. Meanwhile, a former prince who voluntarily departed the institution that would have provided his protection for free established an expensive life in a different country, and is now asking the taxpayers of the country he left to fund that protection at the same level it would have been provided had he stayed. That is a genuinely difficult argument to make in a way that commands public sympathy. Here is where all of these threads come together, and I want to be clear about what I believe is speculative and what I believe is observable fact, because that distinction matters. The observable facts are these. Chelsy Davy has had her third child, and her publicly visible life reflects the specific model of family and career that Prince Harry described wanting during their relationship. Prince Harry announced a two-child limit in 2019 in a context that surprised people who knew him well. The One Young World speech in Manchester contained more than 50 self-references in a 20-minute address to young global leaders, with reactions from inside the room reflecting what the transcript analysis showed. The Jordan footage has generated consistent conclusions from multiple independent body language analysts reviewing extended, multi-day footage rather than isolated frames. Vanity Fair has reported that a post-divorce manuscript was pitched to publishers, and the publication has neither retracted nor corrected that report. Prince Harry does not have Prince William's phone number, according to multiple sourced accounts. He was also reportedly not invited to Peter Philip's wedding, while essentially every other senior and extended member of the royal family attended. No meeting with King Charles III has been confirmed for the summer. The speculative layer I am applying to those documented facts is that, taken together across the pattern of the last 12 to 18 months, they describe a specific situation. A man who has been watching a particular version of his future become unavailable to him, one choice at a time, over a period of years that cannot be reversed. He is now confronted simultaneously with a highly visible illustration of what that future might have looked like in Chelsy Davy's photographs, and with the most difficult aspects of his current situation, reflected in the Jordan footage and the Vanity Fair report. The Chelsy Davy photographs carry particular weight because they are not abstract. They depict, in real life, the kind of future Prince Harry once described wanting. My interpretation is that the Jordan footage captures something that the managed public presentation is no longer fully containing. That is my reading, and I offer it as such, not as a claim of certainty. The facts I have cited are documented. The speech transcript, the Vanity Fair report, the Jordan footage, the Chelsy Davy announcement, the wedding exclusion, and the reporting regarding phone contact. The interpretation I have applied to those facts, the narrative I am constructing from the pattern, is my own, and I am presenting it explicitly as an opinion rather than established or confirmed truth. What do you think? Does the pattern of the last 12 months suggest someone moving toward a significant personal change? Or do you think the managed public presentation will continue to hold for as long as necessary? And does the Chelsy Davy situation strike you as the kind of external mirror that genuinely affects people who are already questioning their choices? Or is that assigning too much interpretive weight to a set of Instagram baby photos? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe to UK Trend News so you never miss what we cover next. Hitting the like button helps support the channel. See you in the next one.